after a previous episode about how to improve Singapore's fertility rate, we got some feedback about where the dads are in the national conversation about raising children. So I do think the way we talk about parenting in Singapore makes it sound like it's mostly the role of a woman, but it shouldn't have to be. Hi guys, I'm Natasha and welcome to another episode of The Usual Place, the podcast where we have real conversations about the headlines. So I heard you guys, and today I'm sitting down with two fathers to ask why Singapore struggles to see dads as equal parents and what it will take to change that. Jeggan, Kevin, welcome to The Usual Place. So Jeggan, you were working at Google and Meta and you were doing sales and business development functions. But since January this year, you swapped out the corporate world to work from home, looking after your two girls who are aged 4 and 2. Welcome to The Usual Place. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
And next to you on the couch, I have Kevin. And Kevin, you're the group head of engagement and programs for the Centre for Fathering. And you also have 4 years of experience as a probation officer at MCYS, when you're still known as that. And then now it's the Ministry of Social and Family Development. But you work with fathers and help them. How do you help fathers be fathers?
Well, we try to inspire them. We can't really help them, but we run workshops and create awareness that fathers' role in the home is very important. And so we run campaigns, we run workshops, we run small groups, really just to inspire the fathers to be the best version that they can for their kids.
All right. So thank you both for being here. And I want to start with the Marriage and Parenthood Reset Workgroup. So it has just come together recently and they have been talking about a couple of things over the last couple of weeks. And Minister Indranee Rajah, who chairs the work group, she actually received some backlash for framing career detours as a thing that women do. Now, dads, in contrast, were not asked to see career detours as the norm. So I want to start with you, Kevin. And I want to ask you, do you think fathers in Singapore are missing from the parenting conversation? Is that a fair thing to say?
Missing from the conversation? I think thankfully more and more conversation about fathers are coming up. I mean, in recent weeks, there were some articles about fathers, stay-home fathers, and some fathers having some difficulty or challenges at work when some of them want to apply for their work from home arrangements, but having some pushback from the companies, things like that. So there's a lot more conversations about fathers, but I think there's a general mindset or stereotype that the caregiving arrangement should be the moms and the dads should be the breadwinner. I think there's a very traditional way of thinking, but thankfully I think that's starting to change.
So when the conversation defaults to women like that, when we hear things like career detours are something that women should see as the norm kind of thing, what message do you think it sends to men and their role as parents?
I think it reinforces that, oh yeah, it's okay. As a father, I can go back to work and just focus on work and let my wife manage the kids. I think that's subtly driving home that message, which we don't want.
Yeah. Okay, well, we have a dad who, left the workforce to take care of his 2 girls. So, Jeggan, I think what you did is still kind of unconventional in Singapore. Why did you decide to become a stay-home dad? Like, could you walk us through what landed you on that decision to eventually do it?
Sure. I think for me, the main concept was regret minimization. That makes sense.
That's such a corporate regret minimization. Okay, tell me what you're thinking about.
I didn't want to be 60 or 70 years old and look back at this time and think, oh man, I should have spent more time with my girls. Because the very traditional path was obviously continue working, getting promoted, make more money. And it's great. There's nothing wrong with that, right? It's your journey. You should do what you want to do with it. But for me personally, I was seeing my girls grow up and I was feeling not as connected as I wanted to be with them. And for me, I thought that when I'm 60 or 70, I'm more likely going to regret not taking this time. And I'm definitely going to make less money doing this. But I think I'm more likely going to regret not spending this time than making more money, if that makes sense.
Who factored into your decision to do this? Because I think we often hear about, in-laws and your parents, like maybe they might worry about who's taking care of your wife or even the kids. Like, was there did you have any pushback from anybody when you said, okay, I want to do this?
Yeah, so a big supporting person in all of this is my wife. Like, none of this would be possible if she wasn't there to support me and support our family. She continues to work. And she was very supportive of the decision of me doing this as well, right? Family-wise, I was actually quite lucky in the sense that I didn't feel a lot of judgment from either my parents or my in-laws. With that being said, when I did tell my mom, her first reaction was, "Ayo, Jeggan, People are dying to get into companies like Meta. Why would you leave? But it was less of a function of you're the man, what are you doing? More of a function of you have 2 young kids. Is this a financially smart thing for you to do, given the job market and stuff? So I was lucky there. But I have spoken to other people who feel that they would feel this external pressure a lot more, where whether it's your own parents or in-laws would think, quote unquote, less of them if they decided to do this.
Kevin, have you heard these conversations about, men who are like, okay, my mother-in-law says, I have to be like the breadwinner. How can you leave your job? Have you heard these kind of things among guys?
No, I've not heard pressure from in-laws or from parents, but I think even if they don't say it, I think they may imply it. Yeah, so maybe the fathers who are thinking about it may have unspoken expectations that you should be the one working, you should be the one putting food on table. But I wanted to go back to what Jeggan was saying, that you said that you might regret 60 years or later, and then you're saying that it's a financial situation as well, like you could be earning more money, right? But I really applaud you for this decision, because while, yes, if you actually continue working in Meta, you could earn all that money, but you cannot get back the time that you have with your kids. Your kids will continue to grow older. Yeah. I mean, if you want to put them side by side, right? Like your kids will keep growing, and you could either keep earning raising the bank account or when you have kids, right? Yeah. But you can always earn the money later, but you cannot get back this time with your kids now. So this is a wonderful decision that you made.
Was it hard for you to walk away from, Meta? And, a lot, as you said, like a lot of people want to work there, and then you spend a lot of time building your career. Was it hard for you to, sit down and really think, like, I really want to do this?
Yeah, 100%. So look, we get paid well. The benefits are really good. It's a great place to work, right, in big tech. So walking away from all that voluntarily, people still look at me like I was crazy. And it was hard, because I worked so hard to get there. I worked so hard to do well there. And then to wake up one day and decide, okay, actually, I don't want to do this as intensely anymore. It was difficult. And on your point about, like, I could always make more money, I agree with that, right? But I am also realistic that if and when I do decide to go back to work, I've told myself that very likely I'm not going to get a job as lucrative as the job that I had in Meta, right? And that's okay, because I've made a very intentional choice of taking this time off to spend it with my daughters. And if and when I go back to work, I need to be okay with the fact that realistically, I might not get a job that pays as well. And I can tell you now that, yeah, that's okay, but I don't know for sure how I'm going to feel about that when that happens. But I'm just betting that, like I said, when I'm 60 or 70, all that would be worth it, because I got this time with them.
So when you were talking about this with your wife, how did you decide that it would be you to be the one to stay at home? Yeah,
I think for me, in the job that I was doing, I felt that I've done pretty well. I learned a lot through that role, right? And I was like, hey, I can continue doing this, but how much more satisfaction am I going to get out of this compared to spending this time with my girls? And for me, I realized that I've achieved a lot in my career that I was already happy with. And anything more didn't seem as exciting for me as spending this time with my girls. But it's a very personal thing. My wife, on the other hand, her career is going, like, she's doing well. She, knock on wood.
What does she do?
She's a lawyer. And there are a few things that she still wants to achieve in her career, which I'm super supportive of. And I think she should go out there and achieve those things, right? So it was never a conversation of one of us should do it, as in we'll decide, is it you or me? It was very much me approaching her and be like, hey, I would really like to do this. What do you think? Do you think this is something you'd be supportive of? So it was never we sat down and decided who should do it. It was very much me coming and saying, I would like to do this. Are you also okay with me doing this?
Do you think men are deterred from stepping forward and playing a more equal role because of the way they might be perceived by society? Because you mentioned, Jeggan, that you did get some reactions from people when you said you're going to leave and stay at home. I mean, these are not like your family or whatever. It's like, were you getting reactions?
I mean, like, I think there's like an unsaid thing, right? Like when I speak to people that I know mostly. They're very polite. Like, wow, you're so brave, right? But I think you're so brave is just another way of saying I think you're kind of crazy. But I think it's because for most dads, and like I don't want to get into like who can do this and who cannot do this right now. Like, but if you look at say anybody with the exact same background as me, I can argue that that other person can also take this time off because they would have similar financial background or whatever, right? But it's a personal choice not to do so. And I'm not saying one choice is right over the other choice. But I think when it comes to men, there's a sort of underlying expectation that what you need to do is provide. That's all we know, and that's all we see as well, right? Whether it's our fathers, whether it's our peers. So anything outside of that just seems strange. And then you're worried about who you are going to be if you can't be that provider. And I think another layer to this is that most dads think that they're not as good as a parent as the mom is, right? For whatever reason. They're like, oh, like the mom is better at this. The mom is better at making the kid feel better. The mom is better at knowing what the child wants, right? So dads are like, well, if the mom's already better and I can provide, why not just stick to my lane and provide?
Kevin, thoughts?
Many thoughts. Where should I start first?
Well, maybe you can tackle the point about what Jeggan is saying about the dads seeing moms as like, they themselves see their wives as like the default parent.
Yeah, I think the reality is the moms have a head start than us, because when the baby is in the mom, the sound like the parenthood starts for the mom. But for us, we are waiting for the baby to come out. The only when baby come out, then we get to hands on, right? So we are 9 months late, so to speak, in the parenting game, so to speak. So and I think the initial stages as well, baby kind of requires the mom more because of the breast milk or whatever, the kind of thing, right? That the caring, the nurturing part, moms tend to be a bit more natural in caring for the baby. So for fathers, that's where we come in to try to encourage fathers to say, hey, even with infants as well, you can play a role in being a part of that as well. But I think that's right, that some fathers maybe think the wives are better at it, so let them do it, and then I just play the second fiddle, right? But that's not true. At Center for Fathering, we encourage the fathers, even at 1,000 days, that's something that we are launching, right? To really encourage both parents from expectant period to really be involved, and then when baby comes out, and it's all the way to when they are 3 years old. Yeah, so that's actually a misconception that the moms are better. It's just about practice and getting into it.
No, to be clear, I want to be clear about that. It is a misconception. It's a misconception that I had as well, right? Because I even had a video about this, how about like my wife is the preferred parent, right? But I'm realizing that's the wrong way to look at it. My kids will always need my wife in a particular way, and that is not my role. But they will need me in another way, and that I need to show up for that. And as a dad, what I realized that I was doing wrong, and I'm speaking for myself here, is that I always thought that, as they get older, I'll have more to do with them. Oh, my daughter is older, I can run around with her, I can play with her, right? And with my first daughter, I would just naturally do more with her because she was my first and I was just there. My second daughter, I realized that, when she gets closer to my older daughter, I'll do more with her. And I realized that by just doing that, I was getting more disconnected from her. And what I realized that when a kid is that young, you can't do much with them outside of just like acts of service. So I'll give you an example. Since taking this time off, I'm home every day. So I'm helping with breakfast. When my daughters come home, I'm the one like bathing them, getting them ready. I'll put my second daughter to bed. Just the sheer act of doing that on a daily basis has improved my connection with my younger daughter. And this is not the fun stuff, right? This is not playing with them. This is not waiting until they do cool things. Just the daily bathing routine with my younger daughter has improved our relationship. So what I thought was, I'll just wait till they're older, it was actually wrong of me to think. I can do stuff right now. It's not the fun stuff to do, but it's the helpful stuff. It's the helpful stuff to do that will build that connection.
And this is stuff that moms do.
Yeah.
Yeah. So did you kind of feel like you needed a crash course in how to do it? Did it come naturally? Because I feel like moms are also starting at ground zero. Everybody starts in the same level, right?
Yeah.
But what is the inertia, or I mean, I'm not sure if inertia is the right word, but what's holding dads back from doing this like you are?
I think it's just like, again, growing up with what we see, right? Like, so, I mean, I grew up, my dad's a great provider, right? Like he was always working hard to make sure he could provide for our family. My mom actually quit her job to like take care of us, right? She actually finally said, "Hey, Jeggan, I got no articles written about me when I did this."
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And I will say something in a bit, but I'm going to let you finish.
So I was like, no, I completely get that, right? So I think for a lot of dads, and look, I want to make sure that I'm clear that this is an explanation and not an excuse, right? Like a lot of dads will see their dads and be like, oh, my dad did this. And then that's all they know. And they saw their moms doing more. And then even as we become adults, like we live in this new world where like both parents work, but society as a lot still doesn't quite know what to do with these two parents. They still see that, okay, mom, you should go do this, right? And dads, you go do that. So even as a kid is born, both parents are working, the mom is still expected to do this because that's all society knows, right? So, but then dads then I think need two things to like kind of step up, right? One is self-awareness, like to be like, oh, I can do more. But two is also a partner who expects more of you. Like I would always be like, oh, I'm like crushing it because I'm really doing better than my dad. And my wife would be like, look, I appreciate you doing more, but no, you're not crushing it. Why, instead of comparing yourself to your dad, why don't you compare yourself to me? Right? Once you compare yourself to me and then you feel like you're crushing it, then you're crushing it. Right?
So I have to jump in here because so that was the other thoughts that I was having. One of the reasons why fathers are not stepping up because the mom is so capable. The mom is able to work and still do house chores and still cook and still do every kind of thing. And that renders the husband / father, not say useless, but they feel that, what can I do? Is that kind of thing at home. But I got it all sorted out with or without helper. But the mom is so capable that she manages everything, tuition, everything, right? So the father is like, okay, I'll just go and work then, right? So as a fathering, we encourage the moms, can you please involve the fathers? Right? Just involve the fathers in doing a chore or something, right? So one of the tips that I tell the moms is that, it's very easy to, hey, Jeggan, go and get dinner, right? So we send the father out to go and get dinner, right? But I tell the mom, ask him to take one kid with him. So along the way, talk to your kid, right?
Yeah.
Depending on how old your kid is, you can do some math thing, right? Okay, if I give the auntie $5 for your plate of chicken rice and it's $3.50, how much change do you get? That kind of thing, right? So you can do some math thing there. You can also empower the kids. Okay, you order from the auntie. Or from the hawker, right? Things like that.
But why do you have to tell men to do this?
So that's what I was going to add, right? So I think the one thing that I would add to this is like when my first daughter came about, right? I was a very present dad in the sense that I was like, I was there. I was like, I told my wife, you need me, I'm here for you, right? But then what I didn't realize, and we talked about this, was that I was essentially putting one more thing on her plate, which was, now you tell me what I need to do. So I'm like better than like the previous generation. And at least I'm there. I'm like happy to change diapers.
Asked, like, you can help out.
So I'm there patting myself on the back thinking, oh, I'm crushing it. I'm amazing. Because like I'm there. I'm like, oh, I'll change diapers. You want me to give a kid a bath? I'll do it. You want me to take a night feed? I'll do it, right? So I thought I was like being very helpful, which I was. But at the same time, I'm not being as helpful as she needs me to be because I'm not being proactive. I'm being reactive and expecting her to tell me now what to do, right? So I think what I have tried to learn to do better, and I'm still learning this, I'm not an expert, right? To be more proactive in my approach. The other side of this also, though, is that my wife has had to learn to let go as well, right? One is she has had to learn to ask for help as well, right? So that's something we have to kind of communicate. I have to be proactive. She has to ask for help and how do we meet in the middle. Secondly is letting go, which is she has a certain standard of how she wants things done or her own style of how she wants things done, right? And then I will have my own style of how I want things done. So then being okay with if you expect the other person to do their thing, they will do their thing and they still have their kids' best interest at heart. So, and then you should be okay with that as well. So I think finding that balance is not easy, but essentially dads need to be more proactive and moms also need to learn to let go a little bit.
Yes. So,
Kevin nodding.
Yeah.
Tell me.
So we describe it like a dance, like parenting this child is like a dance, right? So the mom, like I said, is so capable. She's always doing the thing. So when if the dad's a bit more aware, he's trying to come in, but the mom's like, no, I got it. Yeah. So if he's trying a few times, he don't let me in. That's it. I'm not going to come in. But if the mom steps back and say, hey, come in. But if she step back a few times and the dad doesn't come in, it's like, okay, I've given you a chance. You're not going to come in. That's it. I'll just do it myself. Right? So it's about this whole dance thing. Like the wife needs to step back. So I agree with what Jeggan is saying, right? That if the standards, because if the father is going to be dressing up the kid, if the t-shirt and the shirt don't match, it's okay. Let it be, you know. Yeah. If you really want to, then you tell them the set to wear, you know. If not, then if it's the orange shorts and the blue shirt, it's okay. Just let it be, you know. Things like that. If it's not up to your standard how they're dressed, they're not matched, it's fine.
It will ruin the pictures, Kevin. But no, I hear what you're saying.
But I think it's a very important realization that the moms need to know that like for fathers, exactly what you said, that if I compare with my father, generally, I'm doing a magnificent job. Yeah, so like, I'm doing a lot more than what my father did for me. So I'm already like, wow, well done, right? But the problem, no, I would say the issue is not the problem. The issue is the mom manages or rates his standard with her. She's the benchmark, not your father. Yeah, and so that's where the mismatched expectations is. Yeah. So we both have to come to terms with that. That hey, you know,
and to take it one step back generationally as well. So like my wife's mom will look at her and compare her mothering to herself, right? And then she'll compare my fathering to her father. And same with my mom. Right. So like, and moms back in the day, like very few of them worked. Some did, but most of them were homemakers and they stayed at home looking after the kids. Right. So they may not always appreciate the fact that, well, this new generation of moms is also working. Right. And doing so much more in terms of helping the household outside of also looking after the kids. Right. So even how you're being compared versus the previous generation is a big deal here. Right. Because moms are being compared versus moms of the previous generation. And despite all the new challenges they have, I think are sometimes expected to do everything exactly the same as the previous generation. Dads are being compared to the previous generation where the bar was very, very low. So we look amazing, whereas moms look less amazing despite everything they're doing across so many different scenarios.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about a number that's quite interesting to me. So the number of stay-home dads is actually on the rise. So the number outside the labour force has risen from 1,900 in 2022 to 3,000 in 2025. So this is from the Ministry of Manpower's annual labour force in Singapore reports. You know, Kevin, what do you think is spurring dads to kind of do this?
I think like what he said, I think the fathers are realizing that their roles are equally as important to the mom, right? And that it is that season where he can stay home. Currently now it's his season to stay home. And so I assume that the couple had talked about it and they had decided, just like this family had decided, that he would be the one to stay home during this time. And I attribute it to education and being aware of the changing trends, that we don't have to stick to that mold that mommy is at home, dad is outside. And so these fathers, kudos to all of 3,000 plus of you who were brave to make that step to be home with your children, and to support that family this way,
I mean, one thing that moms face and commonly talk about when they leave their work to be full-time caregivers is this loss of identity, and because they suddenly go from having careers, fulfilling ones, I hope, to being full-time carers of children. Jeggan, did you face this? Was there like a shock when you left the first couple of months?
Yeah, I think again this is a clear showcasing that like life is very different for men and women, right? And sometimes very unfairly so. So what I mean by that is I was worried before I left about how I would feel, for sure, right? But since starting, I think, like I said, people are very surprised at my decision and because it's so unexpected. I mean, like I had an article that I was a part of. I'm on this podcast. So like there seems to be more of a celebration of my identity shift, right? Whereas for moms, it's less so because like it's almost like expected. Oh, you're the mom, you should stay at home anyway, right? Why are we giving you any flowers, sort of thing? So I think it is a lot harder for moms in that sense because it's like almost like whatever I do is not good enough, right? Or if I'm working, who's looking after the children? If I'm looking after the children, like, why aren't you working, sort of thing? Like, I'll give you an example. If I was traveling on work, no one will ever ask me, who is looking after your kids? Not once has that question ever been asked of me. But if like my wife and I know other moms who travel on work, they get that question. Oh, so like you're here, who's looking after the kids? So I get my point is that essentially I can completely understand moms feeling like they have this loss of identity because like once they leave work, it's like almost expected they're supposed to stay there, right? And there's no like real celebration of them making that choice. Whereas for dads, because it's so unheard of, at least right now, there is more of a celebration, or there's a rising celebration sort of, as dads are deciding to do more of this. So they can almost like revel in their new identity of being a stay-at-home dad, which is kind of cool because I'm hoping that it shows other dads it's a viable option. But I can also understand why moms will be looking at this and be like, well, where are my flowers?
Yeah.
Two sides of it. One of it is for the fathers to choose to stay at home, because I think one of the reasons why this is out of the ordinary, because for men, our identity, some of us, identity is our work. So if I don't work, who am I, right? And then if I step home, what's my work? But so if we actually get the bearing to say that, or acknowledge that I'm a father, so being a father, yeah, I should stay at home, right? And my vocation is whatever that I can earn or bring, supplement the income and support the family kind of thing. So identity is one of the reasons I think why fathers find it very hard to step out of work to stay home, or very brave, because they tie their identity with their work. Yeah. The other part about the moms is when they do what they're supposed to do, it sounds like expected. So I know some well-meaning relatives, they just assume that my wife will take care of the kids. So it's just an unspoken understanding that moms should be taking that role.
Are we able to change this narrative? I mean, we're in 2026. It's like, why do we still hold on to these very traditional Asian values?
I think something what we grew up with. That's what we saw. So that's what we assume. But we
also
is
have
normal.
like external influences now. I mean, we see men, there are dad influencers who are like very hands-on, and there are op-eds and parents write about how they're involved, dads write about how they're involved with their kids. It is kind of in the conversation, but we still tend to, like, a lot of people, not everybody, but many people defer to this traditional stereotype. Then how to change, Kevin?
Continue a podcast like this. Yeah.
Okay, every month you guys come back. It's like sense check on fatherhood.
Yeah, I mean, but we also want to be careful to not swing to the other end where end up all the fathers at home and then the moms outside, right? It's at the end of the day, I think the decision to stay home is a family decision, and it should be for the benefit of the children or the child, right? I mean, at the end of the day, you ask yourself, why am I working so hard for? It's for the family, what? It's for the kids, what? No point I earn all this money, but I have no connection with my kids, right?
Yeah. And I think, I mean, it's a very nuanced thing, right? There are so many factors to consider here. Agree with Kevin, it should be like a family decision, right? Like, you should think through what is the best for my family, and also what is the best for my relationship with my children. So you start reframing that question a little bit, as opposed to thinking, if you stop thinking that all you're good for is providing for your family, then it sparks something like, oh, actually, I have more value to provide my children than just being somebody who brings home money. And then you'll start to realize, hopefully, that it's so rewarding. Like, when you spend time with your kids, when you get to know them on a level that is beyond the surface level of whatever, it is like, I mean, I'll give you an example. Like, my second daughter woke up at like 1:30 in the morning today, right? So then she was calling for us, and I went into her room and I slept with her. And then I tried to sneak out when she was done, and then she woke up, she's like, Daddy, where are you going? Right? And then I finally snuck out again, thinking that she would sleep, and I went to my oldest, because she had gone into our room by this time. And then she called out again, maybe like an hour or two later, and then I went into her room. She's like, Daddy, I missed you.
Aww.
Right? And I'm telling you this because this wouldn't have happened 5 months ago. She would never have said any of these things 5 months ago it all came down to just putting in that time. And I don't mean this means you need to be a stay-at-home father, but my point is like when you do spend time with your kids in any meaningful way, it is rewarding, right? Sorry.
No, I'm glad you brought out the, you don't have to be a stay-at-home dad, because I think a lot of the conversations that we have about parenting and when we have stay-at-home parents on the podcast, people often comment and say like, this is because you guys are privileged. You can only families of a certain income level can do this. And I mean, Jeggan, were there some financial considerations that you and your wife had to work through when you decided to do this?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not going to lie that I feel very lucky and privileged to be able to do this, right? I'm not saying that, everybody should be able to do it, like do it. I don't know everybody else's financial situation to comment on that. But for me personally, yes, we spoke about this at length. Like I think we discussed this for like 8 months or so before I actually made the decision, right? So that took some planning, that took some additional saving to make sure that I had enough runway. My wife continues to work. So yes, there was a lot of planning that went into this, right? For me to stay at home. But with that being said, I think the conversation is about like who should stay at home. All right. So I think that's where we have this conversation. Yeah. Having one parent stay at home might not work for everybody. It just might not. But then the question is, if one person can stay at home, who should that person be? Should it be the mom or should it be the dad? And I think that's where the conversation becomes more interesting, because if you can afford to have one person stay at home, who should that be? And again, I don't think it needs to be like a forever thing for each person, right? It's not like, oh, you're the stay-at-home parent, that's your role forever. Right? It could be a seasonal thing, which is like, okay, it is my turn to go out there, experience the world, make some money, and you're going to stay at home with the kids if that's what you want. Or next, you can go back to work and do your thing, and I can stay at home. So I think that should also be part of the conversation. It shouldn't be, oh, well, you stay at home, I stay at home, and that's it. It should be, if one person wants to stay at home, and this is an if, right? This should work for your family. Have the conversations who it might be, and it doesn't have to be a forever thing for either parent.
What's your plan? Like, would you go back to the workforce when your kids are in primary school, perhaps?
Yeah, I think for me right now it's fluid in the sense that like I decided to do this. I want to take this first year off first and think about how I'm going to feel at the end of this year. Right? How is my wife going to feel at the end of this year? That's also a very important consideration, right? Mm-hmm. Like, she's my partner in all of this. Mm-hmm. If she feels very strongly that, hey, it'd be helpful for our family for you to go back to work, that's something I have to listen to and pay attention to, right? If our finances require me to go back to work, then realistically, I need to go back to work. So for me, it's a little bit fluid right now. I want to take this year to truly be present at home, and then I'll reassess at the end of this year.
Kevin, I want to still stay on the topic of privilege and, what can families do to be more active parents? Because as I mentioned, not every couple can afford to have one parent stay home as the caregiver. So what do you think needs to change, perhaps culturally or within workplaces for fathers to feel more empowered as mothers, even if they're not going to be stay-home dads? Because right now, the take-up rate for government-paid paternity leave rose to 56%, right? In 2023, it was 53% in 2022. But it's just like about half. Shouldn't it be like 90%? Or 70 or something? But it's just, what's happening here?
Yeah, so paternity leave is one aspect of it. Because paternity leave means that you still have your job and you're just using your paternity leave to care for your newborn, right? So shout out to all the fathers who are eligible for paternity leave. Please take it. It is your privilege to take it. It is a good season for you to rest, but also to spend time to support your wife and also your newborn. So it's important to take it, even if it's half a day or a day. Really take the 4 weeks that you've given, and you don't have to take it all one shot. But I think what we hear from the ground for fathers, there are multiple challenges from the male employee with regards to paternity leave. Some of them think that it's career suicide, or it will affect their career progression, because if I'm away from my work for too long for not work related but it's like paternity kind of thing, it might jeopardize their progression or even job security. Like some of them may come back from it and they might find that they're being replaced or not. Although that shouldn't happen, but we hear that that's a fear that they have. So their own personal struggles as an employee. The other side of it, if the father or employee wants to take it, but the environment or the work culture doesn't facilitate that, either it's their role, the nature of their work, or the HR or not, is not so cooperative or supportive that way. Because for HR, they have to manage, like if I'm going on paternity and he's got to cover me kind of thing, right? So the HR have to make arrangements to load my work on him. So it's also managing colleagues and employee satisfaction, things like that. So various reasons. So the corporate culture itself may also not facilitate or encourage paternity leave that way. So both sides are some tensions that the fathers go through.
But what does active fathering look like for fathers in general? Because we're not saying that every dad has to consider being a stay-home dad at some point, but how do they become more active in making the role of parents a little bit more equal between them and the wives?
Well, so at Center for Fathering, we have a I Can Fathering workshop actually. Yeah, so it's a full day workshop to actually highlight the importance of fathers, and we give them some handles, some tips of how to be an ICAN father, I Can father, being involved, being consistent, aware, and nurturing. It's a little bit like what he's already doing, right? And it's not so much about just playing all the time, but it's really just being there, being present with the kids. That is already being an active father. Just having the father's presence is a big win for the kids already, because they have a sense of security, they have a sense of stability, knowing that daddy's around and also mommy's around. Yeah. So it is about spending time showering them, eating with them, playing with them, reading with them, or even just fetching them to and from school. These are all being active. Just the big I, right? I is being involved, just being there, and that the kids can turn to you whenever they want to. I think that's a very important piece that active fathering has to happen.
Yeah, which is what, Jeggan, you did something which is quite interesting. You actually started a class for hairstyling class, right? For that, yeah. I think it's like, yes, make your girls look like really cute with their cute hairstyles. How do you think these type of classes actually help break the stereotype and get dads to be more involved?
Yeah, first of all, I was pleasantly surprised as to how many dads reached out and wanted to be part of the class. I've run one class. The second class is actually this Friday. And most of the people come from that class, but I don't know. So they've just reached out, wanted to do it, which is a good signal that more dads want to do stuff.
Is it
right?
about 8 or 10 guys?
I do 9 people. I have 9 people coming in at any one given time. We use mannequin heads to learn to do the hair. It's hard to learn on their daughters, right? But I think, just to build on what Kevin was saying, right? It's with being involved and active, it's also telling yourself that you can do things that you might not think you can. There's no way a few years ago I would have I thought that I could do hair. There's no way, right? I still can't do it nearly as well as their mom, right? But that's not the point. The point is that if you try, you will do it and you will figure it out. It might not be as pretty as you want it to be, but that comes with just doing the reps, right? So I think for dads, it's just that almost psyching yourself up to being I can do it, right? If I just try to do it, I can do it. And then over time, you will get better at it, whether it's the bathing, whether it's the dressing them up, whether it's the hair, whatever it is, right? You'll be able to do it. You just have to tell yourself and then put in the time and the effort and then you will do it. The other side of that, I think, of being an active dad is also being more aware of what your partner needs, right? Because we're still in a world where moms carry a disproportionate amount of the mental load, right? And I'll give you an example, like something very, very small, going through our daughter's clothes, seeing what they've outgrown, and either giving that away or getting new things. My wife has always done that. I helped her with it for the first time 3 months ago, right? So my oldest daughter is 4.5. So for 4 years, I've never done that, right? So my point is outside of being an active father, it's also, I think, important for dads to be just more aware of all this mental load that their partners are carrying, and then saying, okay, how can I just actually help them? And it goes back to then actually asking, hey, what can I help with? And sometimes moms can tell you, but also just being observant and then figuring out and being proactive and saying, okay, I'm going to take this off your plate. whether it's everything school related I'm going to do, or like making sure that their clothes are refreshed. You guys can figure out like what your dynamic is, but I think then being proactive is to taking things off your partner's plate as well.
So I think that's a great place I want to end off and ask Kevin that if more fathers are hands-on like Jeggan, so basically equal to their wives, would it encourage more couples to have another kid, or couples on the fence who are thinking about having kids? Would this, if they see each other as equal, would it encourage them to have children?
I'll hold that thought first. I want to just add on to what he was saying about the helping bit. I think he mentioned that earlier, and that triggered my memory on as fathers, we shouldn't see ourselves as helping the wives.
Correct.
And Fanny, my wife, always tells me, dear, you're not helping me. You're the father.
Yeah.
So, you have equal responsibility. Yeah. So don't tell the kids that I'm helping mom with the chores, I'm helping mom with the dishes. No, you are doing it because you are a father and you're showing a good example to your kids. So reframe, the fathers, we need to reframe that we're not helpers also. We're not extra helper,
You're not doing mom a favor.
No, we're not helping her. Yeah,
it's your half.
It's part of our job. Yeah, it's our role. Yeah. So
it's like you're not babysitting your kids; they're your kids.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I think that's a narrative that we need to unlearn. That we're not helping the wives. We are the father. We can and should do it. Yeah. So if the father is more proactive and more active, would that actually help other couples have more children? Well, that is an important piece to have, because if the wife feels that, yes, my husband is supportive in this whole raising of children and stuff, that might push them there. But it's just one piece of the many pieces that I think needs to happen. Because if the father is involved, I think that's a big win. But finances wise, affordability is one thing. So even if lower income, for example, the family may not feel that they can afford another child, for example. I think another article on some couples who already have one, and when asked them, why don't you want to have a second one? They say, I don't even have time for my first one. And if I have a second one, I have to split my time. It's not fair to the second one because I won't have time for the second one. Yeah, so that's also another factor to think about, like time strapped. Then the work environment don't change. Then the pressures from work is still going to come. And so it's difficult for them to actually build a family or have a family if the work environment is not there. And finally, the ecosystem. To have children, we all hear this, right? It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to support the parents as well, right? So if the parents feel that it's just me and my wife to raise this kid, it's very tiring, it's very burdensome. But if I know that I have extended family, friends and stuff, to come alongside to help me, to encourage me to raise this kid, I think it'd be easier, I think, right? So there are many factors that need to happen more than just a supportive husband and father.
All right.
Yeah.
So thank you both for sharing your insight. Unfortunately, we did not figure out how to fix the TFR, but we will get there. So thank you both for being here. And that's it from The Usual Place. Now, if you're watching us on YouTube, do subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you won't miss new episodes of the podcast. And if you have thoughts on what we just discussed, do drop a comment on YouTube or talk to me on Instagram at The Usual Place Podcast. I'll see you next Thursday.